There's been a bit of a tug of war going on. Biden kept it in Colorado. And of course, Trump likes undoing what Biden has done. And this is just the latest example
Yes.
of that.
It is, of course, time for the Trump jump, and a very apt time to be doing it as well, because Donald Trump has just finished his Q&A, his press conference at the White House, where he announced that the US Space Command would move from Colorado to Alabama. Various other interesting news lines and topics of conversation came up as well, and so it's well worth talking about the main talking points with Harriet Alexander, who is a US-based reporter. Good evening to you.
Hello, Kate.
Lots to go through here. The main announcement, of course, was about Space Command HQ, and moving it from Colorado to Alabama. Let's just take the announcement on that.
So I want to thank you all for being here for this important announcement, 7 years in the making. As you know, this has been going on for a long period of time, and I am thrilled to report that the U.S. Space Command headquarters will move to the beautiful locale of a place called Huntsville, Alabama, forever to be known from this point forward as Rocket City.
There we go, Rocket City. That's significant. He did have a bit of a go at Colorado, didn't he? He said that the plan for Space Command HQ, that it was always the plan to move it from Colorado to Alabama, but the Biden administration had thwarted that, Harriet. But he took the opportunity to take a swipe at Colorado at the same time.
Yes, that's right. He did. He pointed out that he thanked the people of Colorado for housing Space Command, but he also said Colorado has mail-in voting, which is a big bugbear of his at the moment. But this decision to relocate to Alabama, it hasn't come out of thin air. Actually, Trump, when he first revived Space Command back in 2018, he originally wanted it in Huntsville, Alabama. Of course, Alabama, a very strongly Republican state. So good for them, good for their senators with all of the jobs that it creates. And, you know, Huntsville is not sort of unused to having this. They already have a large NASA base there. They have a lot of defense contractors there. So it's not a ridiculous idea. But the reason it was actually kept in Colorado Springs, is that that was where most of the infrastructure was. The Defense Department said that they were concerned that it would be difficult for operational readiness were they to relocate to Alabama. So there's been a bit of a tug of war going on. Biden kept it in Colorado, and of course, Trump likes undoing what Biden has done, and this is just the latest example.
Look, everyone's been talking about Trump's health. Of course, it's very apparent that he's not dead, despite the rumours at the weekend. He was asked about it. Here he is.
Last week, I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape. No, I heard that. I get reports. Now, you knew I did an interview that lasted for about an hour and a half with somebody, and everybody saw that was on one of your competitors. I did numerous shows and also did a number of truths, long truths, I think pretty poignant truths. No, I was very active over the weekend.
There we go. Donald Trump defending himself there, calling it fake news. I mean, look, he definitely does have bruising on his hand. He definitely doesn't always cover it up in the most subtle way. But he says he's in fine health. And we need to remember as well that he's a man of, what, 81?
He's 79.
79, so forgive me for
you're aging him. You're aging him a little bit. Thank you for that, Kate. No, but yeah, he's 79. And he wrote on Truth Social over the weekend that he has never felt better, which you think has to be stretching the truth a little bit for a 79-year-old. But he was at pains, of course, to point out that he is still alive and kicking. Yes, he has these bruises on his hand. People were pointing out that the late Queen Elizabeth, she had the bruises on her hand, and that was shortly before she died. But I don't think you can quite make those comparisons. Donald Trump has been diagnosed as having a venous condition with his veins, which is causing the bruising. He's also known to get swelling in his ankles, but he's 79 and he's pretty robust from what we've seen. So he's able to laugh these off and say, yes, he's alive and well, despite what J.D. Vance perhaps unhelpfully suggested when he said, if there's a terrible tragedy, I'm ready.
Oh dear. Okay. He was also asked a lot. I mean, this is dominating the news headlines at the moment, sending in the National Guard to Chicago. A federal judge ruled that when he sent the National Guard into Los Angeles, that was unlawful. He described Washington, D.C. as now a safe zone, but said he still plans to send the National Guard into Chicago. Let's have a listen.
And you have this governor, Get Up, who's a terrible governor. Probably he and Gavin Newsom would be probably the two worst and most naive. They're naive. Either they're naive or they're very untruthful. And he'll say, we don't want any protection. We don't need. So in the last 3 weeks, he's lost almost 20 people killed. There's no place in the world, including you can go to Afghanistan, you can go to places that you would think of. They don't even come close to this. Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now.
Gosh, strong comments about Chicago and Baltimore. And I'm sure many residents will disagree. He also, I think, quoted some inaccurate figures, didn't he, on Chicago?
Yes, that's right. I mean, he has been hammering home this idea that they are the most dangerous places in the world, some of them, which is just flat out untrue. When you look at the statistics, Chicago, sure, it has its problems. I mean, it's quite localized, but Chicago is certainly not one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And actually, Gavin Newsom, who of course just scored a victory today with the federal judge saying that the deployment of the troops to his state was unlawful, 5,000 of them sent in June. Gavin Newsom has been trolling Trump about this, saying, you know, if you are so concerned about crime rates, I look forward to seeing you deploying the troops to Louisiana and to Mississippi, both obviously very strongly Republican states, which have per capita far higher murder rates than California. And he makes a good point that the cities that Trump is targeting are cities that are led by high-profile Democrats, and Trump very much likes the idea of going in there to solve their problems. It's an interesting one in DC because DC is actually quite affected by violence. There's been some high-profile incidents. It used to be very localized. Now it's fairly widespread. So, you know, people are not against the idea of improving the situation in DC. But of course, there's been some controversy about how it's been handled and whether it's actually the best way to go about it.
Yeah, he called Gavin Newsom, of course. He also said he learned some things over the past few days about the Russia-Ukraine war. He was asked if he'd spoken to President Putin over the last week, whether there was, talk of a ceasefire, talk of a meeting between Zelensky and Putin. But he just said, I've learned some things in the last few days that will be revealed very soon. Any speculation as to what that might be about, Harriet, at all?
It was really interesting, wasn't it? I mean, what has he learned? Has he started paying attention more to how Putin is carrying on the bombing and the attacks? Melania Trump sent that letter, didn't she, in Alaska, appealing to Putin to his humanity. And his response was to carry out an onslaught of bombing against Kyiv, but also to attack an American factory that is in the far, far west of the country, so a long, long way from the front lines. There is absolutely no respite to the violence. So what can he have learned other than that perhaps his overtures in Alaska were not very effective?
Yeah, he was also asked, with reference to that school shooting in Minnesota last week, he was asked about whether every school should have a National Guard troop member on the door, basically. An armed National Guardsman to every school was the question. He said, he praised teachers and parents and went back to a suggestion from his first term, Harriet, that said that maybe some educators, those who'd previously served in the military perhaps, could be armed.
Right. And this is something that Republicans fall back on when they're asked about school shootings, because they are never going to say that there should be tougher gun control. Very rarely do they go down that route, especially in this case when the guns were purchased legally. So the answer for Republicans is to say that schools should be restructured. They should be made safer. If you remember, after the Uvalde shooting in Texas, Ted Cruz said that the problem was that schools had too many doors. So nothing to do with the guns, but the fact that there were too many doors in school buildings. So too many doors, too many windows, and also wanting to arm teachers. But of course, it's worth stressing that this is something that teachers' unions are adamantly against. And a lot of people think that it's truly not the answer.
There was also a question, in case any of our listeners missed this. There's been a video doing the rounds, circulating online, of someone throwing a bag of trash, a bag of rubbish, out of a window at the White House. And he said that it was AI generated when he was asked about it today. But the White House press office has confirmed the video is real and said it showed a contractor who was doing regular maintenance while Trump was away.
Yeah, it's a really weird one, isn't it? It's sort of file under "Is Trump dead?" The sort of the idea of contractors throwing things out of the window. I mean, you'd be a bit taken aback if that was your own house, let alone the White House. And yes, Trump was shown this video because he said he didn't know what they were on about. So the reporter actually handed over their phone and showed Trump this video of this being thrown out of the window. And Trump said, no, that's not true. It's AI because that window is locked. He obviously was unaware that the White House press office had already said, oh, yes, it is a real video. So just a sort of a bizarre episode in a bizarre presidency.
Yes. Finally, not sure if you are covering this, but I'm going to ask you about it anyway, Harriet, if that's okay. Nigel Farage was due to make a speech at the National Conservatism Conference in DC tonight, but he missed his speech, apparently. I don't know why. That was talked about by Harry Cole, who, of course, is out working in the United States, editor-at-large of The Sun, now with a US focus. So apparently Nigel Farage missed his speech at the National Conservatism Conference. We don't know why. He's due to address a Congress committee tomorrow, isn't he?
Yeah, and I mean, it's unusual for Farage to pass up deliberately on any speaking engagement in the United States because he gets a very warm welcome here. He is very much an ally of Donald Trump's. He likes that. And you remember those photos of the two of them with their thumbs up in Trump Tower the first time around, and Farage maintained those connections, and he's quite well seen within MAGA circles. So, yeah, unusual for him to miss this. I mean, I'm looking out my window now, Kate, and it's beautiful weather here on the East Coast. So
yeah,
you wouldn't.
I wonder what happened.
Like that. Yeah,
yes.
It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, but I would imagine not deliberate, but you never know.
So tomorrow he's going to give evidence to the House Judiciary Committee. The topic is Europe's threat to American speech and innovation. The session's going to highlight how European online censorship laws, specifically, of course, the UK's Online Safety Act and the EU's Digital Services Act, will endanger the right of Americans to speak freely. We'll keep across that one. Harriet Alexander, a lot to get through, a busy agenda today. Thank you for covering it all with us. Harriet Alexander, a US-based reporter.